Hello and welcome to this basic introduction to the Rhino 6 user interface. The Rhino 6 user interface is comprised of many different components. The main component is the model views. In this standard viewport layout we have 4 different viewports. We have a top view, a front view, a right view, and a perspective view. Above the viewport layout we have the Rhino Toolbars, and above that we have the Rhino Command Manager. We also have our layers and our properties to the right of the viewport layout. All these components can be floated and moved around at any point in time by hovering over the handlebars beside the component and simply dragging the components. For instance, the command manager may be docked at the bottom. Our viewport layouts can also be customized. For instance, we can maximize a viewport by double-clicking on the viewport title. By double-clicking on the perspective title, we will maximize the perspective viewport. We can also change the shading mode of the viewport by clicking the down arrow beside the viewport title. Selecting Shaded will transition us to a shaded viewport, and selecting Wireframe will now display all objects in the viewport as a wireframe. We can close a viewport by clicking the down arrow beside the viewport title and selecting Close Viewport. If we wish to restore our viewports, we can use the For View command, or we can go to View, Viewport Layout, and we can select 4 viewports from the list. This will restore the standard 4 viewport layout. Object properties and layers are very important to Rhino since all objects belong to a layer and all objects in Rhino have properties associated with them. If you do not see the Object Properties menu, we can open the Object Properties panel by going to Edit, Object Properties. That will open the Properties window, or we can press F3 on your keyboard, or we can select an object and press Alt-Enter. All 3 of these methods will open up the object properties. Object properties are categorized into many different sections, the most important of which are the actual object properties and the texture mapping properties. These control how textures are mapped onto an individual object. The layer that an object is assigned to is controlled by the Layers panel. If the Layers panel is not visible, it can be made visible by using the Layer command, or we can go to Panels and turn on the Layers panel. This will make the layers visible. When looking at the Layers panel, there's always going to be one default layer, and the default layer is indicated by a check mark beside the layer name. We can change the default layer by simply placing the check mark into a different layer name. When we make a layer default, its visibility is always turned on, so it's impossible to hide objects or to turn off the visibility of objects on the default layer. We can turn on or off different layers by turning the light bulb on or off by simply clicking on it. As we turn on additional layers, we can see the additional information is now being displayed in our viewports. It's always best to turn off unused viewports or viewports containing information that is not relevant to the modeling task. We can create new layers by clicking the New Layer icon or by right-clicking the panel and selecting New Layer. Similarly, we can delete a layer by selecting the layer and pressing the Delete key on the keyboard, or we can right-click on the layer and select Delete Layer. The Rhino interface has a standard menu associated with it. The File menu is primarily used for document management, such as creating new documents, opening existing documents, saving documents, and printing documents. We can also access the document properties through the File menu. The Edit menu is primarily used for undo and redo, selection management, group and visibility controls, and basic object editing such as join, explode, and trim. The View menu is for viewport and construction plane management. For instance, we can turn on or off different viewports, we can change the shading mode of our viewports, and we can also change the construction plane that all new curves and points will be created on by using the controls in the View menu. The Curve menu is dedicated to curve creation and management controls. The Surface menu is dedicated to open and single surface creation and manipulation tools. The Solid menu is dedicated to closed volume polysurface creation and management tools. The Mesh menu is dedicated to mesh creation and manipulation tools. The Dimension menu is dedicated to annotation tools. An annotation is just a type of geometry that indicates the length or the angle between two reference points. The Transform menu is dedicated to transforming objects, such as moving them or rotating them. This menu also contains a few more advanced options such as twist, bend, taper, and stretch. The Tools menu is for Rhino Options, configurations, and add-ons, such as the ExactFlat for Rhino plugin. The Analyze menu is for measuring tools. From here we can measure the distance between points, or the length of a curve, or the area of a pattern piece. The Render menu is dedicated to 3D rendering tools and rendering controls. The Panels menu is for turning on and off different panels associated with the Rhino document. For instance, we can turn on or off object properties, and we can turn on or off the layers view. The Help menu is for self-help with Rhino and for Rhino version information. To retrieve the version of Rhino you are currently using, simply click the Help menu and navigate to About Rhinoceros. Rhino information will be displayed down here beside your user information. For Rhino Licensing, we can click the Help menu and we can navigate to the About Rhino menu, and then from here, at the top of the Help menu or About Rhino menu, we will see a Licensing tab. We can click the Rhino Licensing tab to view and manage your Rhino license. The Rhino Toolbars are subdivided into many different sections known as tabs. The standard toolbar for Rhino has a collection of standard tools that are most commonly used, such as New, Open, Save, Print, and so on, as well as some new additions to Rhino 6 such as Grasshopper. We also have toolbars for managing construction planes. Construction planes are the plane on which new points or new entities are created. We also have toolbars for managing individual views and viewports, as well as rendered displays. And there are many other toolbars, tabs on the toolbars for specialty tools. Pretty much every single menu up here has the toolbar associated for quickly launching commands from the menus. You can turn on or off additional toolbars by right-clicking on the toolbar, navigating to Show Toolbar, and then placing a check mark in the toolbar that we wish to display. For instance, placing a check mark in the 3D digitizing toolbar will turn on the 3D digitizing toolbar. We can then close the toolbar by simply clicking the red X, or we can right-click on the toolbar, navigate to Show Toolbars, and uncheck 3D digitizing. The Rhino command line offers us a history of all the commands that have been performed in Rhino. In Rhino, all actions, all operations are all commands. So even though we click a toolbar button, when we click that button, it is still running a command in the command manager. We can see these commands that have been run by navigating and scrolling through the command manager. We can view the command history by using the scroll bar and scrolling up and down to view all the commands that have been executed. We can clear the command history by right-clicking on the command manager and selecting the clear option. As we start working with Rhino objects, it becomes important to be able to select individual vertices or pieces or faces. There are a number of selection filters and snaps that help with selecting objects in Rhino. These can be turned on at the very bottom menu down here, or through the Panels option. We can turn on or off object snapping by clicking the O Snap option down here at the bottom. Similarly, we can also turn on and off our object filter by clicking the Filter button down here at the bottom. The object filter allows us to turn on or off what objects will be selected. For instance, I can turn off meshes in the object filter, and now I will be unable to select any mesh in Rhino. Turning meshes back on now allows me to select my meshes again. Our object snap allows us to snap to certain types of objects when performing different operations. For instance, if I were to create a line using the line command, the default options will simply create these points the line on the construction plane. However, I can turn on vertex snap, and now I can snap my selection to individual mesh vertices. There are many other snaps that allow us to identify specific selection points. The endpoint snap allows us to snap to line endpoints. Near snap will allow us to snap to any location on a line or a curve. The point snap will allow us to snap our selection to individual points, excluding mesh vertices. The midpoint snap will allow us to snap to the midpoint of a line or a curve, and so on. Rhino has many options that control its function. We can access the Rhino options by clicking the cog icon in the Rhino toolbar, or we can go to Tools, Options, or we can use the Options command. All of these methods will open up the Rhino Options panel. The Rhino Options panel is divided into two distinct sections. We have Document Properties or Document Options, and we also have Rhino Options, which are global from document to document. We can select any of the categories in the Options panel and modify the options associated with them, including ExactFlat options. ExactFlat for Rhino is a plugin for Rhino. To access the plugin, we can go to Tools, Options, and we can go to the Plugins menu. The Plugins menu shows all the add-ins or plugins that have been loaded into Rhino. ExactFlat is accessible via the ExactFlat plugin. ExactFlat also includes custom toolbars that have been automatically loaded into Rhino when the plugin is installed. The toolbar contains three different tabs. The first Mesh Tools tab contains tools that are used for diagnostics and mesh processing. Some of these tools include the Mesh Validator, the Uniform Remesher, and the Adaptive Remesher. The Tools tab contains all the tools required for flattening a mesh or a surface with ExactFlat for Rhino. The commands are mostly in order, with the flatten command being the very first one and the optimize command being the second. The third command is the Dxf Export command. When creating a DXF after flattening an object with ExactFlat, it is important that you always use the ExactFlat Dxf Export command. Simply saving your document as a DXF will not include seam allowances, notches, tags, or 3D to 2D markings. The last tab in the toolbar is the Highlights tab. This tab allows us to turn on or off various highlights such as our strain analysis, our piece identifications, our automatic and manual cut highlights, and our triangulation or triangle tessellation.